Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here. And now, curtain up on today's episode. As we continue our National Wellness Month series, today's episode we're talking all about vocal health with someone you might call ENT to the stars of Chicago and those performers passing through. He is the division head for laryngology at Rush University Medical Center. Singing since a very young age, his fascination with the power of the human voice piqued his interest early on, and he considers his passion for helping people use their voice in various ways as forever rewarding. He has been my and my family's ENT for most of our time here in Chicago, and I'm honored that he took the time from his very busy schedule to join us. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dr. H. Stephen Sims. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hi, Dr. Sims. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for joining me here in the podcast. I'm excited to include you in our first Wellness Month series of the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we always ask our guests at the very top of the podcast, tell our listeners about your first theater experience. It could be whatever first live performance experience you encountered, either as an audience member or as a participant.
Oh, okay. And all of this is, I guess, important for my history. I grew up as a singer and a musician, so I was always involved in live performances. So the first exposures were as a little kid. I was probably around 5 when I started singing in the children's choir at my local church.
Okay.
And so those voices were always captivating to me, and what led to later me wanting to study this as a career and really focus on how the vocal folds work. The way in which people were able to captivate an audience, the way in which people would use the vocal folds and do this like mesmerizing thing, just fascinated me. But my first show, I guess I was probably in 5th grade. And we had to drive because local theater in Bluefield, West Virginia was not robust. But I remember going on a school bus to Kentucky to see The Wiz, the traveling company for The Wiz. And I didn't understand then what a traveling company was.
Sure.
And those kinds of things. So I was thinking, oh yeah, Stephanie Mills is going to come to Kentucky and I can go see her. And then I got there and I was like, oh, it's not her. But, obviously.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. But the performances were, captivating, and these were wonderful performers.
Sure.
I didn't understand then like how the whole thing worked, that there was a cast that was in New York and another cast that went out on the road.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my first live show. And then the first show I was a part of, I was in the orchestra for Oliver when my high school did that. But then, and I was doing show choir and show Broadway songs, but an actual show. The first one was Oliver, and I played trombone and I was in the orchestra.
Oh, cool. My dad played trombone all through high school and college. Yeah. And then he gave it up.
Brass.
Yeah. Okay. So now next question is to take us back to the beginning. Give us a little bit about your background and your history and your training. Both, it could be in the arts and, of course, as your training as a doctor. Let's hear your whole background.
So I gave you a little bit of that. I grew up as a musician and singer, so I was always started singing when I was 5. Started playing piano when I was probably around 5 as well. Started taking lessons when I was 7 or 8, something like that.
Okay.
And then in 5th grade, I started playing trombone. In 9th grade, I decided I wanted to add something like a woodwind, so I started playing bassoon. And like obsessed over making reeds and the whole thing. But yeah, I'm a musician, and I love sound. I love harmony. I love how notes interconnect and how you get something magical when you take these separate notes and pull them together,
Uh-huh.
which is why I love diversity now.
Yeah.
But off topic. But yeah, so that was always a part of what I wanted to do. And then when I was in high school, Annie Lennox was singing with the Eurythmics and was having some like voice trouble. And it was public, and they started talking about her going to see the voice doctor. And so that was like that little glimpse into, oh, that's like a real career. Like you could do that. And I was also a nerd and a geek. And so I was always the kid who was like in the kitchen experimenting and had a lot of scientific process to my thoughts and discovery and curiosity. And I thought, yeah, this career that would let me be a doctor who took care of voices would just be perfect for me. And so I committed to it without even knowing what it was. In that, I sort of knew there was a voice doctor and there was a surgeon.
Mhm.
And so I went to college and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a surgeon. And I didn't realize there was a specialty called otorhinolaryngology, or ear, nose, and throat, that really would cater to that part of the body. So I didn't know I needed to be an ENT. I just knew I wanted to be a voice doctor.
Okay.
And, I kept going and it all worked out. But yeah, I sort of just approached it from, this would be a great thing for me, even though I don't know how to do it.
So if you would say that word for me, please.
Otolaryngology.
Otolaryngology. Okay. When I looked at your bio on Rush, there was another like oto.
Oh, rhino.
Right. So,
Otorhinolaryngology.
and that's obviously ear, nose, and throat. But
Yes.
is it just more economical to say otolaryngology, or is it two different things?
It's the same thing. Otolaryngology is just the shorter version. So like there are two abbreviations, ENT and ORL.
Right. ORL
Oh.
obviously is the corresponds to ENT.
Yeah. So Latin, ear is otis, nose is rhinus, throat is larynx. So
Got it.
otorhinolaryngology is the same as ear, nose, and throat.
Got it. But more often than not, we're referring to someone of your specialty. You say an otolaryngologist. You sort of leave out the
Yeah,
the
it's
nasal
some.
one.
I don't remember when. Probably in the 50s, it got shortened.
Okay.
Otorhinolaryngology. Well, neither of them is like particularly easy to say,
Right.
but otorhinolaryngology is longer than otolaryngology,
Right.
and so it got shortened.
Gotcha. And then we went to the English equivalent, ENT, ear, nose, and throat,
Yes.
ENT, just all for brevity. Cool. So where did you train to be the doctor?
Another interesting part of this story
Yeah.
is, like I said, I grew up in West Virginia, which certainly does not lead the nation in educational achievement, but I was just very fortunate. I think it was because I scored well on my PSAT. Honestly, I don't remember now. But somehow an application from Yale showed up in the mail. And so I went to Yale for college and medical school and then stayed there for residency. And then the last part of my training, which was a fellowship in just doing professional voice and working with singers in particular, was in Nashville at the Vanderbilt Voice Center.
Oh, cool. Did you have any country singers come through there?
Oh,
When
yeah.
you were, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of them.
any celebrities that you can talk about on the podcast, or no? That's confidential because the HIPAA laws.
Well, I mean, I can somewhat say it because she in particular is never shy about it, and she's donated to them. And she wasn't my patient. I was a fellow there. She was a patient of my mentors. But I met a ton of people there and loved all of them. But one of the most memorable for me was Dolly Parton, because I grew up on Hee Haw.
Sure, me too. Yeah.
And watching the Porter Wagner show, and she is as genuine and sweet and authentic in person as you see on television. I mean, just a gem. And like, she was one of those people who would say, no, you don't have to bring me back special. I can sit in the waiting room. I can sign autographs. Like, I can be around people. What, you don't have to treat me special.
Oh,
Just,
wow.
I mean, just a beautiful, genuine spirit.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, because
Yeah.
we sort of see the outward persona, and then we just never know what's going on behind the scenes. And sometimes we've been shocked by our celebrities and who we hear, people who have these big talk shows, and then you hear all these exposés about their toxic backstage. So
Yeah,
it's nice that she's walking the walk. That's
I
nice.
mean, she's one of those people that you're like, do you know who you are? Why are you so humble? You know?
Yeah, no, I'm not a country music fan, but she is definitely somebody that I am marveled by, just by her, as you said, sheer generosity of spirit and
Yeah.
of person, and her philanthropy, all of it.
And it's
No,
real. I mean,
good.
totally real.
Nice to hear that. You've got such a wide musical history between musical theater and gospel. Is there any particular type of music you like to perform over any others?
No, not really. I think it's more the feeling and the
Mm,
idea that musicians are storytellers. And I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I always love country music, because it felt real and authentic to me,
mm,
and people were telling stories,
mhm,
and stories that were relatable, and it's about us trying to get through this thing called life on this planet,
mhm.
and whether it's an aria or a gospel song or a country song, it's really for me more about, do I see an arc from beginning to end? Do I
Mhm.
see a character that moves or learns or grows? And the genre, I love them all as long as the story is really moving.
I like that answer. And we should be all putting out more thought provoking and moving pieces of the world and using our voices for that purpose to move people.
And it's one, I feel like I'm one of the old people now, and I mean I am, but uh, when I was younger, and people would say, "Oh, this isn't music. We listen to real music. You all are just listening to bubblegum."
Mhm.
Um, and I, I don't want to be that guy, but I do think there are ways in which the storytelling is not what it used to be, and
Mhm.
and I think that there are things that are very commercial, that have lyrics that may not have as much meaning. And
Yes.
not everyone, because I think there will always be artists who are very deep and introspective and emotional and will write things that really, really speak to people. I think that that will always be the case. But I also think that it's an industry,
Mhm.
and there are metrics, and there are uh, business ideas
Yes.
that have very much permeated through the industry,
Yeah.
and it has, I think, changed some of the artistry.
Yeah. And to that point, I want to mention specifically a show like Hamilton, which was so off the common thread of what a Broadway hit could be.
Oh
It's
yeah,
certainly not, hip hop was not a genre that I grew up listening to. I was very much a musical theater kid, and I liked, popular music with Billy Joel and Elton John, those types of things.
yeah,
But it wasn't until Hamilton sort of became what it was, and I saw it for the first time, and I was absolutely blown away because
yeah,
it,
yeah,
as you said, it connected with me as an audience member. The performances blew me away as artists, bringing across that message and those arcs and those stories. And then I got a coffee table book the year we saw the show from my wife. That was it's basically the entire libretto with little footnotes from Lin Manuel Miranda about like where he got the idea for each lyric,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
just blew my mind even more about how he took this historical moment, or he wanted to make sure he had this internal rhyme in this moment, and why that was so important to the storytelling and to the forward movement of the piece. I mean, it's a fascinating read, but to your point, I mean, it's just the whole structure of that show and
yeah.
bringing in a style of music that many people like myself maybe were not super fans of. I have it on a loop. I listen to it at least once a month on my Apple Music.
Oh, we all do. I
Yeah,
mean, and Lin Manuel Miranda is brilliant, obviously.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that's a great example of the way in which music is so universal.
hmm
If people allow it to be, I think that we all have our favorites. We all have the things that are a part of our history. Uh, but the actual music, like, I might not sit here and think, yeah, Biggie Smalls probably put down some stuff that would do great on Broadway. Like, you might not immediately think that, but
yeah,
it totally works.
yeah. Especially
You know,
nowadays. Yeah,
so it is, it's the magic of music, and
yeah.
one of the reasons I've always been happy with this career choice and the work that I do, and the awesome wonderfully talented, generous people that I meet, like you.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
it's a great thing to do.
Well, I do want to speak to that because you are one of the first call doctors that artists coming in into town on Broadway tours and local artists like myself who live here come to see when they're having a vocal issue. First, I'm curious how your name, well, I mean, your reputation, of course, precedes itself. So you're now the first call among Broadway Chicago. They give it to all their touring acts coming in. But I'm curious, what is one of the biggest issues that actors come see you for?
I think it's a range of things. A lot of the people who are passing through on tour or coming, when the show is in one of the theaters here for a while, are often more acute issues and not necessarily long-term things.
Mhm.
But one of the things I always review and go over with any patient is some of the long-term habits that are just going to be good for you no matter sort of what's going on. But I mean, I say that to say that, like, there's some of it is just troubleshooting. Like, people come in and they're acutely ill, they have a viral infection that has led to some swelling on the vocal folds, and we just sort of need to manage that in the short term and help get them through the show. And side piece on that, I think one of the other aspects of what I view as my role is like helping protect the singer. And so I'm pretty adamant about, if I think you shouldn't perform because there's a risk to more substantial injury if you try to sing through, particularly an especially difficult role, or one in which your voice is, exposed, like meaning you're a principal and you have a lot of work, you're on stage a lot, as opposed to you're in the chorus, and perhaps there are ways in which you don't, like, people don't hear you singing by yourself
Right.
the whole show. Then I'm like, there's a little wiggle room to maybe let you do it and sort of pull back a little bit. But if you're front and center and people are going to hear everything that comes out of your mouth, and I think, today things may not come out at your best. I am the person who's like, I think it's better to think about protecting your overall reputation than to, commit to doing this particular performance. Now, all of this is, filtered by who's going to be there, how important this performance is. So we have to think very carefully about all those things.
Yeah.
But one of my roles, at least as I see it, is to help the artist think through, like, is this a make or break show? Or are we better off just saying, this is why you have a cover.
Mm-hmm.
Let them go on tonight. You get some rest. We will give you, some anti-inflammatory things, and we will try to get this under control. But in the long game, it's better off to take the rest that you need today, allow some recuperation and rejuvenation to take place, and then you can go back to it tomorrow
Well,
or 2 or 3 days from now, depending.
Well, speaking as an artist who's been in a long running show, I can only thank you on behalf of all of us artists, because oftentimes there are very few people advocating for us when it comes to our own health. And we need the support of a professional like yourself to say to management, they need to take a break, because otherwise it's just nose to the grindstone. We feel like we're going to feel inadequate or lesser than by management. We appreciate people like you, as I said, advocating on our behalf, because it means a lot, and it helps legitimize our health and well-being to powers that be who may minimize it.
And part of this is just the analog. I mean, I think when we look at a broader concept of the entertainment industry, if you were on a professional sports team, if you have an injury, there's no question you don't play, because there's a long game of, well, what if you play slightly injured and then you do something that creates a catastrophic injury?
Yeah.
And everyone conceptualizes that and gets it. And we see players with a sprained wrist and they're playing with something wrapped or bandaged all the time,
Mm-hmm.
or we hear they're sitting it out because they have this injury. They saw the orthopedic specialist and it was recommended that they rest, and they're like no questions asked. And it so I want to try to mimic that or mirror that when we talk about vocal athletes. I
Mm-hmm.
think there should be the same level of protection and the same level of understanding that in the long term we are better off if we take care of you rather than just have you do this show when we could create a catastrophic injury.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What are one or two things that you would like people to know first and foremost about the vocal folds and the care therein?
I think some of it is, again, like conceptual,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that the vocal folds are not weak. They're small. They're very small. I tell patients all the time, they're about as big as your thumbnail. So that this area of your body that does such miraculous, tremendous work is not very large.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have to like be mindful of it and take care of it. And I think in particular, younger singers, and I was one myself at one point in time, you feel invincible, and you feel like you go to sing and every note is there and you don't really have to work all that hard for it. So you feel like I could just do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you age and things change a little bit. So one of the things is laying down foundational habits early. Because again, I'm always about the long game, and I want people to be singing every note they want to sing as long as they can sing it. So a lot of it for me is just promoting vocal health and conservation and understanding that the vocal folds are not weak, but they are not invincible. And so you can work them, you can stretch them. I want people to want more. So, you want more range, you want to do bigger roles, you want to stretch and grow and see what your voice is able to do. I'm all for it. I'm here for you. But I also want people to understand their limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I often talk about is vacation notes, because again, as a singer, I understand that there are places I can visit, but I can't live there.
I love that. I love calling them vacation notes. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. The
I
stuff
do.
where I'm like,
Yeah.
on the best day when I'm really warmed up and I don't have to stay on that note for very long, sure, I can get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I could not sing a role that lived there. Like this is the money note all the time.
Yeah.
I can't do like, and part of it is my, I started singing young, so I was a soprano. And I vividly remember when all of that went away and I was like, what is this voice? Like, and first of all, the instability of puberty.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth when I start singing.
Mm-hmm.
And, eighth grade year, I slid into tenor. And even that, like a lot of times felt too low for me. I
Wow.
know. Yeah. And then later that year, I was like, oh, that's gone. I am now a baritone. And I have lived with tenor envy probably since then. But yeah, I'm solidly a baritone. And so like me singing first tenor is just not wise. I can do it. I can get there, but it's a lot of work. And I can't live there.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I, was a boy soprano. Then I went into being a baritone most of my career. And it wasn't until I really booked Jersey Boys where I had to really start working on that upper falsetto really sort of consistently. I mean, it was always there, but I never lived there. Never did I ever have to live there. And when I was doing shows and singing in ensemble, there were 15, 20 tenors, maybe not that many, but like the large majority of the guys in the ensemble were tenor. They'd say, anybody want to sing baritone? My hand would go up because that was where my voice lived naturally. And I didn't want to work that hard until I booked Jersey Boys and didn't have a choice. And now it's pretty much my voice has expanded as a result of that, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock when I had to start really inching my way up in those notes. And now I'm there kind of permanently because of, my 4C notes, of course. I want to ask you to dispel some myths about vocal health. I've heard a bunch of them over my time. I've heard people talk about a bunch of them. So I want to get your buy-in. I want you to say, give us, yes, that's true. That's a fallacy. Let me know. Oh, so the first one I want to ask about is, spicy or salty foods before singing. I actually got advice from a vocal teacher once that spicy or salty foods are good because they help bring a lot of blood flow to the vocal area. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, yeah, okay. So I'll preface this by saying I am like one of the most permissive people I think around, because I really do try to function in, if there's something about it that seems helpful to you and I don't think it's harmful to you, then I won't tell you not to do it.
Okay.
For this one though, I think spicy, salty right before singing is asking reflux to start happening. And not everyone has reflux, so I'm well aware of that. But I would proceed with caution with that advice, because it is very real. Well, first of all, eating a heavy meal before performing, I tend to discourage.
Sure.
But definitely having something pointedly spicy, any potential benefit from increasing blood flow, which frankly I think that potential benefit is low, is more than offset by the risk of stirring up reflux and creating irritation, which is going to end up limiting your range and clarity. So, for me, like, there's not enough potential benefit from that to try it.
Excellent. This next one I always found interesting because, to my knowledge, food and drink don't pass over your vocal cords. But this next one was drinking dairy before singing because it coats your vocal cords, quote unquote.
So,
yeah.
Let me start with no, because you are absolutely right, and I think a lot, and it's just a slight misconception, because the vocal folds sit right in front of the swallowing tube.
Right.
But the two function very, very differently. And by design, whenever you swallow, there's a piece of tissue called the epiglottis that covers your vocal cords so that things won't go down that way.
Right.
So, like, there's a built-in mechanism that will keep something that you swallow from coating your vocal cords. If you want something to coat your vocal cords, you actually have to breathe it in, which that is something I recommend, using like a mini nebulizer, or if you don't have that, a steamer. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but I do think a nebulizer and using saline is better than using water and a steamer. But big concept, the things that you breathe in will more directly coat your vocal cords. Things that you swallow won't. Now, dairy, particularly in the wrong person, may stir up an allergic response. So drinking that right before performing, I also don't think is a good idea. For me, like, there aren't that many things that doing it right before performance is a good idea, other than steaming or nebulizing, something like that was going to immediately coat the vocal folds. But the process of something that you drank, ingested, getting into your body is going to take, an hour at least. And so the benefit from it is not going to be immediate. Again, I think that there are a lot of myths, and I am all for placebo effect and the way in which hormones and molecules get released in the body because you did something and you get a little bit of euphoria from that. And that's very real, and that can be helpful. So I'm all for it, but I do want people to understand, like, scientifically, there's no basis for that.
Gotcha. Now, this brings up an interesting point, because this was not one of the ones I had included, but so what is the purpose of lozenges? If they're not actively landing on your vocal cords, are they there to moisturize your mouth, your throat?
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, I think that is just the concept of the difference between the vocal folds and the vocal tract, because the whole mechanism is engaged. And singing with a dry mouth is a difficult thing to do. But just the understanding that the lozenges are not really lubricating the vocal folds per se, but they are creating lubrication and saliva in other parts of the vocal tract, namely the oral cavity, which is, the sound is going to pass through that cavity and get shaped there. So having that be nice and moist also helps, and it keeps you a little more limber in terms of using lips, teeth, and tongue to shape notes and things like that.
Okay. That makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that, because I actually never thought about what the purpose of lozenges are until this moment. So thank you for confirming that. So this is the final one: cold drinks after singing, and I think this lends towards like of sort of some sort of cool down after singing, which I also want to get to because that's not something that I currently have in my practice of performing. But having a cold drink after you sing, I guess, in effort to cool down your voice.
Yeah, I think that that's a great, maybe not great, but a reasonable idea. I am totally fine with it. Again, with a few guidelines. I'm always the person who says moderation is the best way to go. So we never go to temperature extremes. We don't do extremely hot. We don't do extremely cold.
Okay.
A cool drink, it doesn't really necessarily, again, because it doesn't pass directly over the vocal folds, so it doesn't really calm down the vocal muscles specifically.
Right.
But hydration in general is good and can help you with a cool down. And taking in something that is cool, refreshing, and soothing,
Yeah.
is good for the throat overall. It's not going to like directly affect the vocal folds, but I do think that that can be a part of a cool down, and the way in which you sort of tell your vocal muscles, thanks for doing the job I asked you to do, but now you can begin to rest. And just to your point about the cool down, I again go back to the conceptualization of a vocal athlete, and people just thinking about, you would never just get up and run a marathon. You would train, and then the morning of, you would stretch and you would run, and then you would stretch again and do the cool down. And so I want singers to stop doing the vocal marathon, where they get out of bed and just sing for hours and then go back to doing what they're doing. It's kind of the same idea, and using some of the concepts and techniques from sports medicine and their technology of how you ask these muscles to get ready to do the job. Then you do the job, and then you tell them the job is done so they can relax, so that you don't walk around on 100% all the time.
Thank you for amplifying that. As I alluded to, a cool down is not something I've really ever introduced into my vocal practice. I've been told about it. I'm outing myself here on the podcast. It's not something that I do. Where can I begin to learn about what a good cool down method could be that I could start using?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is that people sometimes, I want to demystify it, because it's not very complicated.
Okay.
The warm up can sort of be the cool down. Like a lot of the things that we do to warm up are similar things that are very gentle to the vocal folds that can be a part of the cool down. I think one of the probably the most helpful and easily accessible things to do is just the sigh. So the
okay.
That even like how you feel that in your body is relaxing.
Yeah.
And it is signaling to your body, you can let go of the tension that maybe has begun to build in particularly the strap muscles on the outside of the neck, but the vocal muscles as well, because you wanted the system to be on the ready in order for you to get through the performance, but now it's over. So you're telling your body, you can let go of some of that tension. You don't have to be ready. Like, I'll come back to you later when I want you to be ready, but for now you can rest and relieve some of that tension.
Okay, I'm gonna start trying to remember to do that post performance. Sometimes it gets tricky, because if you especially have guests in the audience, you want to rush out and thank them for coming. But I would say 90% of the time that's not the case. So I need to start being better with my.
But yeah, a sigh, a little lip trill, things like that, just to let the system know, and really to help compartmentalize what you're asking it to do.
I'll keep you posted on how well that starts to go.
We'll talk.
What are 3 of the top pieces of advice you can give your patients to help them keep themselves vocally healthy?
I think the big 3 conditions that I want singers to be aware of, and come to us and get some help with, are acid reflux, which really creates irritation from below. So acid, digestive enzymes, or sometimes even bile. So it doesn't always have to be acid. It can be non-acid reflux. But if any of those substances come up the swallowing tube, again, the proximity is very close. So the top of the swallowing tube is right behind the vocal folds. And so it just kind of tips over a little bit and irritates that area. And I think, the lifestyle lends itself to it because I was mentioning before, you don't want to really have a heavy meal before a show.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do the show and you're hungry.
Mm-hmm.
You got to eat, but a lot of times you end up eating and then going to bed. That's a setup for acid reflux.
Yeah.
Because you turn on all the digestive enzymes and juices in the stomach, you lay flat, gravity isn't helping you out anymore.
Yeah.
And so you can end up getting some reflux from that. So I think that's one of the culprits that can often rob clarity and range from the singer. So we talk about that. Then things that can create irritation and postnasal drip from above, so allergies and viral infections. So a lot of times I just talk to singers about, well, let's make sure you get allergy tested, and if you have allergies, we're treating them. And then I do sometimes use a lot of naturopathic medicine to help with bolstering the immune system so that people are a little bit more, because that's the other thing, as you were mentioning before, it's a very public facing vocation. And so, you're shaking hands, you're hugging people, you're signing autographs, you're passing germs, or you are a little bit more risk of potentially getting some sort of viral infection. So I do lean into things like taking shaka mushroom or other things that can help fortify the immune system so that people are a little less susceptible to those things.
Yeah.
And then the other sort of kind of big category of things that we see are just other infections in the mouth, like tonsillitis, strep throat, or tonsil stones. I think those are kind of some of the big things that I see, because that's the other reality, is that if the tonsils get big, they really do change the resonance in that oral cavity space. And so that can have pretty appreciable implications for how muffled the sound gets because of tonsil infections.
Tonsil stones? I've never heard of those.
So they're not really stones, but they are hard. And it's basically like little bits of sometimes food, but like a little bacteria will get around it, and they make these little white hard as the saliva dries out, it gets hard. And they can sometimes embed in the tonsil, and you can wash them out, you can gargle and get them to come out, but they are quite a nuisance. I'm glad you don't have them then.
Well, I actually don't have tonsils anymore. I got them out as an adult, which was not fun. That's a story for another time. But just I expanded my knowledge. Appreciate that. So listen, we are a theater podcast. Would love to know if you have any favorite Chicago theater experiences.
Woo! When I first moved here, I moved here from Omaha, Nebraska. And one of my favorite shows has always been The Lion King, and I got to see that at the Cadillac Theater in 2003.
Yeah.
And that was probably the first older and venerable theater in Chicago that I attended a show. And so I'll always remember that. But I remember, I feel like the first time I went to Bank of America Theater was Jersey Boys.
Probably. And actually, well, you would have definitely well, I don't know if you'd gone to it before then, but that was when it was called the Bank of America Theater. It has since changed hands to different banks over the years.
Well, that's why I specifically said Bank of America Theater, because when I went there the first time, that's what it was called.
Yes.
And it was you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even just getting into those theaters, because of the history, and I love an old theater. I mean, from a otolaryngology standpoint, I don't, because they tend to have more allergens and mold and dust. But
but as an audience member, they're gorgeous. Yeah.
But from the architecture, the history, and the acoustics, I love an old theater.
Yeah. There's a theater in New York City, the Palace Theater. I don't know if you heard the story. A couple of years ago, they raised the entire theater from the ground level up to the second floor because of the investor bought the building and they want to put another like retail shop underneath. They raised the entire theater rather than demolish it and build a new theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but that's a cool story.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's probably largely due to the fact that it's I don't know if it was historical landmark, but I think to your point, there were so many beautiful architectural things to maintain that rather than demolish it and rebuild it, they just moved it up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's somewhat atypical for New York, but
oh yeah.
But I love it. I love that they did that.
Me too. Where can our listeners find you online if they need to get a hold of you?
I'm under Rush University, but Steven Sims. Actually, I guess that's probably not true because Rush uses my government name. So I'm Herbert S. Sims, which is the truth, but not the name that I go by. Right. But they can find me or just Dr. Sims, SIMS, the short version, 4 letters. At Rush, you can find me.
Great.
Oh, I forgot. Like you can also see me on Instagram, Chicago Voice Doc.
Oh yeah.
And I have a LinkedIn. I think that's also H. Steven Sims, I believe.
Okay. I should put the caveat that the Instagram is sometimes not for the faint of heart because sometimes you put a couple of like pictures of vocal folds with these big roasts on them, and it's like, okay, I wasn't planning on seeing that in my doom scrolling today, but it is a very good resource, I will say.
I will say I have not yet mastered like how you put that warning screen on it. I'm working on that because I don't want to scare people at all. And the purpose behind that is to show people that a lot of these lesions we can do something about, because I totally get that people are very afraid of surgery, and in particular surgery on the vocal. If you're a singer, you really don't want people operating on your vocal cords. I totally get that. So some of my intent is to help demystify that, but you're totally right. Like if you're not used to seeing it and you're scrolling by, it can be a little jarring.
Yeah. Well, I kid, but I've been a patient of yours I'm living here in Chicago now 18 years. I've been a patient of yours, I think, for probably about 16 of those 18 years. But you've also cared for my wife and my son. We're lifelong patients of yours. So I want to thank you for all the years of care you've given me and my family and my friends who I know you're very good friends with.
It is my honor and pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's good to see you.
You too, my friend. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.